So, Anthony, the floor is yours.
Awesome. Thank you, Kathy. Can y'all hear me? Thumbs up. All right, cool. Thank you. Yeah, thank you for that awesome intro. And yeah, excited to be here, guys. It's funny when Kathy like posted out a little like, hey, who can help us speak? I was like, oh my gosh, like absolutely no problem. I texted Dante Reynolds, who helps with all those events, and I was like, I don't know if you want me to post this in the group me, but like I'm not on the team, but I love the team, you know. So I'm like always willing to help. And yeah, it was funny. I texted Kathy the 24 for 24 on 10K pushes. I was actually talking to my manager John Carpenter, and he was like, I'm really curious. Like, have you ever not had a 10K push? And I was like, no, I've hit it every time. I was like, I have no idea how many pushes though. I mean, at this point, it's like 5 SC1s, 5 SC2s, 5 national pushes, 5 Olean pushes, 5, whatever regional pushes. And we added them up and it was 24. And I was like, that's a lot. I was like, that's actually pretty impressive. I didn't think about it like that. My guess would have been like 12, like, I don't know. But anyways, yeah, so it's always fun. Like the moment I had my first SC2 push was because I think I started like 2 days into SC1 push. So I like literally my third day in Cutco, I went to SC1, like got convinced to like, pay whatever I had to pay, get my cheese knife for Sentoku and went to SC1, which is what all of us are in right now. And then my first one was SC2. And then from then on, I just had to hit it every time because who wants to miss slow-mo night, right? But anyway, so yeah, thank you guys for having me. Dante and Kathy asked me to talk about like cookware and just kind of give you the goods on one of the best things and, in my opinion, the most life-changing things Cutco sells. I always tell people like the knives are amazing, right? Like everybody knows about the Cutco knives, the flatware, the forks and spoons, like they're super awesome to have. But I think the cookware is the one thing that can actually change somebody's life, and I don't mean that with an exaggeration. And I'll tell you why later in this talk. Now, one thing I'll say is just when you're talking about cookware, whether you're a rep at $1,000 in sales or whether you're a rep at a couple $1,000,000 in sales, keep it simple. I think one of the biggest things that a lot of reps mess up is by over explaining things or like giving customers info that they don't necessarily need. Like it's good to have all the details, like what materials stuff is made out of, like how it cooks and like, like the little details about all the specific, like metals and knobs and things like that. But I think one of the most underrated things is just simply explaining it and keeping it simple. I don't know where I first heard this, but somewhere in Cutco, I heard the phrase "facts tell, stories sell," and that is so true, especially with the cookware. Because like think about it when you go into for example Apple, right? That's a pretty easy analogy. I feel like everybody's bought something from Apple at this point. You don't go in there, and if you meet a sales rep and they're telling you about the pixelation in the screen, they're not telling you about like the specs on the camera. They're not telling you about the microchip inside that like runs at like however many gigabytes per second. Like they just don't tell you that stuff. What they do tell you is about the interface, how easy it is to use, the updates they've made on like the camera to make you look better and your friends look better. They tell you about how easy it is to like charge now, how the battery lasts longer, but they don't tell you about the specific science of the battery, right? And that's just an easy analogy to think about, when you're selling Cutco. So I will tell you this: I will give you all the details about the cookware, and I'm gonna give you all the stories that I tell and all that. But if there was one thing you could take away from this talk, it's this: whenever you're selling any Cutco product, you can pretty much narrow it down to 3 phrases that can pretty much sell anything. And those 3 phrases are, it's American made, which I'll say this, we have a big bonus point in Texas. Oh my gosh, that is hilarious. I just gave a thumbs up and it just gave me a thumbs up on the screen. Wow, Zoom technology, sorry. Side note. But it's American made. It's guaranteed forever, and it's the highest quality you can find. So American made, guaranteed forever, and it's the highest quality you can find. The American made part, it's huge. Like I said, especially in Texas, like people love American made stuff. And I will say this: I've actually bought things literally because it was American made. Like my car, I'm trying to think examples, but I've bought multiple things just because it's American made. People just love to support our economy. They love to support the 600 plus factory workers we have that are hardworking Americans, and it kind of just means something to people. It almost makes it like where it is higher quality, and I think it is, but it really does like mean something. Guaranteed forever. I mean, guys, literally guaranteed forever. I remember my manager telling me this one time, and it didn't stick with me back in the day, but like now I fully get it. He kind of told me, he's like, man, like think about it. If somebody told you that you could buy, like, you could spend $1,000 on gas and never have to buy gas again, like, would you do it? And I was like, oh, for sure. Like, I mean, I probably spend $1,000 on gas a year, you know, or whatever, right? Driving around doing all the events and stuff I do. And I'm like, and never have to buy gas again, like no doubt, right? And that's the same thing with the Cutco guarantee. It is shocking how much people spend, especially on pots and pans. Like knives and forks, spoons, same thing. But like pots and pans are the most expensive part of like the utensils in the kitchen. It is shocking how often people go and spend 3, 4, 5, $600 on a horrible set of pans at Kohl's or Dillard's that is like non-stick coated or like cast iron coated or whatever, right? And they do that every couple years. Like it is bonkers, like how much they do that. Imagine buying anywhere from like a $1,500 to a $5,500 set of pans once and literally never buying it again, and it working perfectly all the time. And if anything ever happens to it, Cutco replaces it. And I'll be honest, by the way, I've been selling Cutco for 5 years. I've done a lot of sharpening calls and servicing calls, and I've sold pretty much every Cutco product at this point. The cookware is the single thing I have still yet to guarantee from a customer. I've sent back forks and spoons because they got into disposal. I've sent back tons of knives to Cutco. I've sent back all the gadgets. I've pretty much serviced, sharpened, or helped customers send back everything. I've never had a customer send back cookware. I've heard about it, but I've never actually had it happen. And that's over probably 2,000 to 3,000 customers at this point that I've sharpened and taken care of personally. So fun fact. But yeah, facts tell, stories sell. I'll follow that. Oh, last thing, sorry, highest quality. So highest quality, I mean, just keep it in mind, you know, like literally it is the highest quality. Like Cutco's materials are the best. Cutco just really does manufacture things so well. And has anybody here, like raise their hands, ever just like even held a piece of cookware? Okay, cool. Is it pretty heavy? Like nod yes or no. Feel like it's kind of like built like a tank. That's what we always say. Like you can, if you just feel it, you can just feel the quality, right? Like so just figured I'd ask about that. If you haven't, like go to your office or like text your manager and be like, can I just see a piece of cookware? Like all of them should have at least one. You know, I have a full set in my house. I also have a full set in the display. I fully believe in the cookware. Just ask about it. And there's also tons of videos online, and I'll actually post some in the chat. And I think all your managers probably have these as well. So yeah, so facts tell, stories sell, and then make sure to like have pictures and videos, like either of somebody else using the cookware or you using the cookware. Like if you have either the ability, you know, to get a pan or two or something like that, the ROI is so high, like literally so high. You know, just to get a pan and use it, you sell one set of cookware and it pays for itself. So keep that in mind. One of the best things that I always like to tell for my customers, one of the things that a lot of people worry about with cookware, especially stainless steel cookware, is things sticking. Has anybody had a customer say that, or have y'all ever heard that or anything with stainless steel sticking? Okay. So I always tell people, I go, Mrs. Jones, I was like, do you ever watch cooking shows? And just a little nugget here, I actually learned this from my buddy Curtis J. Hughes, who is I don't know if he was number one last year, but he's number one pretty much every other year at least. Like just in my opinion, the best Cutco sales rep. But anyways, he goes, Mrs. Jones, do you ever cook? Like, do you ever watch cooking shows at home? And everybody goes, oh yeah, I love cooking shows. It's like, yeah, you ever watch like Gordon Ramsay or like Bobby Flay or like Giada or Paula Deen? It's like, they're like, oh, of course, I love those shows. And you always go, do you notice what they do before they do anything else? Like literally the first thing they do when they start cooking, before they chop vegetables, before they prep anything, they take a stainless steel fry pan and they preheat it. And Mrs. Jones, do you ever notice how like nothing sticks when they cook? It's like magic. And they always laugh. They go, I know, like I can never get it. And I'm like, yeah, it's not magic. It's just them using it correctly, right? It's like, it's just them actually knowing what they're doing. And it's not that hard. So here's something I'll tell you about the cookware is it will stick if you don't use it correctly. But if you use it correctly, it'll be amazing. So what you have to do with Cutco cookware, the reason is because it's what's called 5-ply. 5-ply basically means there's 5 layers of metal. There's surgical grade stainless steel on the outside and a layer of an aluminum on the inside. And what the aluminum does, it heat conducts amazing. So what it does actually heats all the way from the bottom up side, or all the way bottom up sides in and top down, so it actually heat all the way around. It's almost like you're cooking in like a pressure cooker or like the oven or like an instant pot, but just in a pot on the top of the stove. It's pretty amazing. You can actually cook a cake inside of like a saucepan or a skillet with the lid on, which is really crazy. So yeah, so it heats really evenly and basically just gets hot enough where nothing can stick to it. If you ever watch a video on somebody using Cutco cookware, one thing you'll see that it's called the water test. What you do is you can actually take droplets of water, and if it's hot enough, they'll actually like ball up and like float on the pan. It's pretty nuts. And then butter and oil never, a little bit of butter and oil, or ghee, whatever. It never hurts to put that on there to make sure nothing sticks. But no joke, you can literally do like eggs with nothing sticking, and I can even show you on my phone. I actually have a cookware album that I show customers, and I can share this if you want to text this to any managers. But you can actually do like multi-course meals on multi-course meals in one pan. Like this is chicken, sweet potatoes, and carrots in 12 minutes in one pan. You can also do eggs without eggs sticking. This is literally what I show my customers. You can do eggs without any butter or oil, and it doesn't stick as long as the pan is preheated. This is actually me making an omelet with my cookware. And it's literally like a 7-second video that you can show your customers, and literally nothing sticks. And they love it. They're like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. And you can see that. I also have, like I said, facts, tell, stories, sell. I have, let's see. Oh, this is the whole complete set of cookware in one cupboard. Like, can you imagine having all your pans in one cupboard? Like most people have like 4 cupboards full of just like just random pans. I love y'all are nodding. Like y'all just understand it. Like, this is awesome. This is my favorite pan, the 11-inch skillet. You can fit like 4 burgers, 2 like T-bone steaks, a whole thing, a whole ears of corn, and then easy to clean. This is one thing that I always tell customers. So one time I was cooking actually, I don't think this was me actually. I think this was somebody else. Anyways, but somebody was cooking some chicken and they burned them, burned the chicken breasts, and just used like a scrub brush and some soap and got everything except that one spot off. And you can actually use what's called Barkeeper's Friend, which is like a stainless steel cleaner. It's like a powder. Buy it at Walmart for like $2. At Home Depot, Lowe's, everything has it. And you can literally, yes, you can get that album, by the way, I can share it. You can literally like just use a metal scrub brush or a scrub pad and take it right off. And I literally show customers this by scrolling through this, and they're like, oh my gosh, it's a brand new pan. Literally went from that to this. And I also have some other before and afters too. Let's see if I can find them real fast. But of Barkeeper's Friend just working so well. I just have like tons of pictures of like other Cutco reps using pans and me using Cutco pans. Like that's a before and after with Barkeeper's Friend and a metal scrub brush. That's a before and after. So not to get too technical into it, but that's an easy way to just kind of, I can share this and kind of show your customers that, and they just like get it. Like anybody that cooks and sees things like that, it just resonates with them so hard. So yeah, facts tell, stories sell. I like to drill that into people's minds just so they understand. Now, I'm going to tell you a couple details about the cookware, right? I can't give a cookware talk without telling you a couple details, just so that you're aware in case customers ask questions or you want to add it into your script. I will tell you this, though. The script that you'll have in either like the demo manual, a script your manager gave you, whatever, like wherever you're getting your script from, it is going to work, more than any just like knowledge that you can pull, from the back of your head, right? But always call your manager, and then they can always help you. Like they can always help you, and I know managers love hearing that because they're like, yes, we want you to call us to help with the cookware. So what is waterless cookware? That's what Cutco's cookware is called, and I'll kind of wrap up with just a few details. Waterless cookware is where you don't use water to cook. And I always tell Mrs. Jones, right? I always tell Mrs. Jones, I'm like, do you ever notice what happens when you cook carrots or broccoli if you like steam or boil them? And it's like, yeah, do you ever notice what color the water is when you pour it out? And they're like, oh, it's always the color of the food. I'm like, yeah, exactly. Because like, where do you think all the nutrients and flavor and like all the good stuff you want in your vegetables goes to if you cook with water? And they're like, oh. And I'm like, yep. And then I just kind of like nod. I'm like, yep. And it just like, we just like sync together and they get it. Right. And it's so funny. Like they just fully aware of what's going on here. And I'm like, yeah. And that's the thing is like, you obviously want to like have all the nutrients and flavor inside your food, right? Like that's the point of it. I'm like, do you ever notice how like, whenever you like steam or boil something, it almost tastes like mush. But whenever you eat it raw, like it's like you can just taste all the good flavor that you want in your vegetables and fruits. And they're like, yeah, it makes so much sense. And I'm like, yeah, you ever notice how like when you go to the restaurant, all the vegetables taste better? And I'm like, and they don't really season them that hard, and they're like, yeah. And I'm like, yeah, because they use the good stuff, the good pans. And so just tell them that. I told you about the stainless steel and how it's 5-ply, looks evenly all the way around. So unique details about Cutco is it's better than nonstick and like nonstick pans with coatings like Teflon, Anilon, all that stuff. And it's way better than cast iron as well. And the reason is, if you ever want to watch a documentary movie, look up the movie called Dark Waters. I think it was on Netflix. I think it's still on Netflix. Look up Dark Waters. It's literally a movie with I forget the guy's name. He's the guy that plays Hulk in Marvel, Bruce Banner. But he's an attorney, and he basically sues. This is a real story and very authentic. He sues this company called like Probda or something like that, and they're the producer of the chemical which is called PFOA, which is the number one chemical in nonstick pans. And it's a whole story about them like killing a whole city of people in West Virginia with like putting this chemical in their water. And that's literally stuff that people are cooking their food in nonstick pans. Like, just to, not to scare you, but literally just to emphasize how much we need to get rid of this stuff. It's a great movie, great documentary. Like, you should watch it if you want to never buy nonstick pans again. Anyways, but yeah, so basically no PFOA and no like toxins that get in your food. I always make the joke. I'm like, yeah, you ever notice when you cook with nonstick pans, Mrs. Jones? I'm like, you don't put pepper in the eggs, and all of a sudden there's like these little black flakes, and they're like, oh no. And I'm like, yep. I'm like, yeah, yeah, that's already you forgot to put pepper, and there's already pepper in your eggs, Mrs. Jones. And I'm like, and that's the bad stuff, right? So surgical stainless steel all the way. It's always the best to use. And easy to clean. That's another thing, is like super easy to clean. Like, you can use metal scrub brushes, you can use metal kitchen tools, you can use, my favorite is the Scrub Daddy brush. I think it's so cool. I use that, and then you can also put it in the dishwasher. It just makes it really amazing, really easy to use. And I'll just wrap up by saying this. Like I said, you got all the facts, you got all the stories. You know how to sell Cutco, just American made, high quality, guaranteed forever. But if you ever want to make it really, really easy on yourself, I know I just gave a whole cookware talk, but make it really, really, really easy on yourself. Look up this video, and I think I can text it to one of those managers and they can blast it out. It's made by my good buddy and a guy that I mentored for 2 years, who in my opinion is probably the best cookware sales rep we have. His name's Jason Jeffrey. He's a sales rep in Arizona, and sold, I don't know, like $5-6 million casually of Cutco over the past like 15 to 20 years. But he has a video of him doing a 3-part meal. So it's chicken breast, carrots, and apples all in one saucepan in I want to say it's 13 minutes, might be 15, but it's literally from prep to cleaning. It's like a 18-minute video, and you can fast forward through it if you absolutely need to for your customer, or you can just let it play. And it's amazing. It shows him prepping the vegetable. It shows him putting some carrots in like a glass of water, shaking it up, and literally in 5 seconds, you can literally see like the water's already orange. It's so cool. And then you can also it shows him cooking. It shows him like preheating the pan correctly from medium to low where it doesn't stick. It shows him cleaning the pan. It shows him prepping the food and plating the food. It's amazing. And he kind of just goes over all the details about cookware that any customer could need to know to make like a good purchasing decision. So I'll just wrap up with that. Hopefully you guys took some nuggets out of this. Hopefully you guys learned a little bit more about the cookware. Like I said, in my opinion, it's probably the best thing Cutco makes. I think my favorite piece of Cutco is probably the shears, because I use them the most. But I do use the cookware a lot. I have a full set in my house, and I love it. And don't be shocked by the price either. Sometimes people are like, oh my gosh, like spending $1,000 on knives. Sometimes people will spend $2,000-3,000 on cookware, even if they don't want to buy the knives, just because they have more of an appreciation for it. I heard a quote. I'll finish with this. I heard a quote, like, I don't know who it was from, but in some Cutco thing. And he said, customers are like cows. And I was like, that's a great way to start this talk. Customers are like cows. They have multiple stomachs. And I was like, this is really weird. I don't know where this is going. And he was like, customers are like cows with multiple stomachs. He goes, sometimes the knife stomach is full. Sometimes the flatware stomach is full. Sometimes the accessory stomach is full. But the last stomach, that's the cookware stomach, it might be very empty. And he kind of told me, he's like, and it's also like one of those things where sometimes after you bought the knives, when you're up serving to the cookware, he goes, has anybody ever been to a restaurant, a really nice restaurant, and gotten really, really, really filled up? buy all the entrees and the appetizers. All of a sudden, they come around and tell you about this exclusive dessert they have. Somehow you make room for dessert. So keep that in mind when you're selling the cookware. There's always room for dessert with cookware. So thank you guys, and I'll stay on for a couple questions if y'all have any.
Awesome. Yes, questions.
I've had certain people where they like the cookware, but they weren't ready for how expensive it was. So what do you say to like get them ready for that?
Yeah. So I think obviously you know how to handle objections. But I think pre-framing is a lot. So I don't know if y'all are doing virtual or in-person demos, whichever. But just imagine, right? Like most of the time you're doing new customers, past customers, whatever. Like you go through the full demo on the knives, right? So like you're going through the full demo. One of the really, really, really good pre-framing phrases to use is you kind of like grab a chef's knife and you go, Mrs. Jones, like imagine this is a $155 knife. Imagine how much metal is used in the cookware. And like if you're in person, you can just like place it on a piece of cookware. Like we did this at events all the time. We're like, this is a $150 knife based off the metal. Imagine how much the cookware is. And you just put the chef knife next to the pan. And it's like obviously the pan has like 10 times the amount of metal. So that's an easy one. And they're like, oh, gotcha. Yeah, like I don't know if you've ever bought nice pans before. And you can always download like look up all clad cookware. They're basically like the highest quality non-waterless cookware out there. So it's like surgical grade stainless steel. They actually use 1810, which is the same thing our flatware uses. Not saying I recommend it, but I'm saying like it's the closest thing without being waterless cookware. And even their pan sets go for like $2,000, $3,000, $4,000. I would say the best, like I said, best thing is pre-framing. You know how we do a price comparison with Wusthof and Shun for the knives. There is that for the cookware. I'm sure your managers have some documents they can send you, so just ask for it. But that's an easy way to do it as well. You know, you can ask them, be like, have you ever been to like Williams-Sonoma or Pottery Barn and gone in the cookware section and seen like what high-end cookware costs? And they'll be like, if they say yes, like you most likely they've seen it, right? If they say no, you're like, okay, let me educate you. Let me tell you a little about it. And another thing I always like to tell people, this is a really good phrase, is everybody's heard the good things aren't cheap, cheap things aren't good phrase. I heard one from John Israel, who was also a mentor of mine. I've had a lot of mentors. He posted this on Facebook, and I was like, wow, this is so accurate. He said, cheap things aren't cheap if you have to buy them again. And I was like, facts. And he's like, cheap things aren't cheap if you have to buy them again. I've told that to customers recently, and it just sits with them. They're like, yeah. I'm like, yeah, imagine going and buying like a $300 set of cookware like every year, at Kohl's, and imagine you're cooking for 50 years. Like, let's just do quick math. If they say they spend $200 on cookware, if they could buy $1,000 set every 5 years, whatever, $200 on cookware, 200 times 50 is 10 grand. Quick math. I'm not really good at it. I use a calculator, but that's, think about it, right? Like the Cutco sets are, not even the most expensive Cutco set is a third of that cost or half that cost. So kind of just, pre-framing, telling them that, understanding like the cookware is expensive, like agreeing with them and, understanding that, and just being like, yeah, but do you see the benefits, right? Like, do you see why it's so expensive? Could you understand how it'd be helpful to have this stuff? So hopefully that answers your question. A couple different approaches.
I have a question. So first of all, like if great, you did fantastic, like showing how to build value for the cookware. That was amazing because like all this stuff I wish I would have known like last year. But and you kind of touched on this a little bit, but we do like a value and price comparison for the knives. How would you introduce that to your customers for the cookware? Because I've had customers who have like these really nice brands of cookware, and haven't taken as much time as like looking into the nice brands of cookware as have for the nice brands for knives. So how would you go about doing that value and price comparison for cookware?
Yeah, well, you kind of answered your question, or you kind of answered your question in your question. Like you said, you've taken more time to look at the knives on the price comparison. Do the same thing with the cookware. That's what I was going to say. Go to Williams-Sonoma. Look up All Clad. Like I said, All Clad's a great one to compare to. Any nonstick cookware, like you can find, it's like super cheap. Most customers I've noticed pitching, tons of cookware over the past 5 years, like they understand nonstick is horrible for you. Like most of them really do, and most of them don't want to buy it. They just have kind of bought it because it's the only thing they could find, in the budget at the time. but like most people will resonate with like, all clad, cast iron, pans. Le Creuset is one you'll hear a lot, as well. Those are the high quality ones. Like I said, Texture Manager, they probably have a price comparison sheet, but yeah, just doing your research, you know, not to get into all the details about all the cookware, but like for example, all clad uses 1810 stainless steel, which is the same our flatware uses, but for cookware, it's porous, so stuff actually gets through the pan, and if they have anything on the inside of the pan, it gets into the food. It tends to warp, which if you say by the way, say the word warp to your customers, oh my gosh, they'll just be like, I hate that, because everybody's had that like one, like a griddle or fry pan that like every time you put it on the burner, the oil seems to like float that way. Or like one side, like bacon heats up hotter on one side than on this side, or like you cook waffles and like one's soggy and one's like burnt to a crisp. Say that, that's a good word to use. Kako doesn't do that. That's a good one to do because it's all evenly heated with the aluminum on the inside and it's built like a tank. Yeah, and like I said, just educate yourself. I mean, that's a pretty easy way to answer that. And for scripts purposes, use this, literally just like use the like knife comparison script and just like change the words to cookware, like, and change the brands. Like it's pretty much the same script at that point. And yeah, and I'm sure your managers, also have new scripts on cookware that they can send you. So hopefully that answers your question.
I think that answers your question. She's speechless.
The mute button is powerful.
I was gonna say thank you. I was muted.
All right. Does anyone else have some questions for Mr. Anthony?
I just wanted to say thank you. That was a phenomenal message. It's kind of like you brought a different. I heard Kyle talk about it last year, and he mostly gave us deets, but you taught us how to use those details and like broke it down. Keep it simple. That's something I need to work on about cookware, I think. So thank you for that. Thank you for just bringing a fire message. And those nuggets you put, like those phrases you just kept saying, I wrote like all of them down. I'm just going to start using those now. That should help a lot. Thank you.